So if I sound a little bit bunged up, I've basically just got over flu, so I apologise for that. Today, I'm here to talk about the making of Smash Tanks. Smash Tanks is a multiplayer AR game that we developed over the last 4 months of last year, and we released at Christmas. So just a heads up, this isn't going to be a super technical talk. It's not going to be packed with data. This is more about our journey creating an AR game, things that we kind of learned with experiences with AR Kit, and bits and bobs that we kind of learned along the way. Probably need my clicker, don't I? So quick introductions. I'm Travis. When I'm not making video games, I'm wandering the Peak District with little children on my back. They are mine, that's fine. I've been making video games now for over 20 years. The vast majority of those titles are with the likes of Sega and Microsoft, making big arcade games. So things like Outrun 2, Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing, Connect Sports. These are all titles that I had a key creative role in. So in 2013, I decided to sort of break away from all that, and I founded Dumpling. And it was mainly to bring my passion for arcade games to a new audience. So we're essentially 3 makers. So there's myself handling the design, and we have 2 engineers. That's the size of our team. We have Brent, who basically he's ex-Rare as well. I used to work with him at Rare. And we've got Jared, who was a university guy who kind of came with us on his placement year and sort of never left. So we released our first game. Go back. So we released our first game, Dashy Crashy. That's supposed to be a video. Released our first game, Dashy Crashy, Christmas 2015. We thought that we could give the endless genre a bit of a kick up the arse, really. So we added lots of sort of physics, made it super splashy. And basically, that was a big indie pitch winner. And it went on to have 4 million plus downloads. And as a studio, that allowed us to sort of remain independent, which is cool. So when we're starting to think about new projects, and Smash Tanks in particular, it kind of all comes back to time that I spend with my kids. So me and Bruce, we love playing board games. So less the kind of dice rolly games, more the sort of physical kind of games where you're flicking things around and stuff like that. So it was during a lot of these sort of sessions that I'm sort of thinking, can we kind of recreate this? Can we kind of recreate this feeling that I have with my kids, kind of like playing games together? When we kind of especially sort of like focused around a sort of central spot and a shared time. I mean, we have multiplayer mobile games, but a lot of the time it's quite an isolating experience. We're kind of all sat there on our screens. So with that in mind, it was kind of like, can we create kind of a digital board game, essentially? So taking Pitch Car, we're huge fans of Pitch Car. It was a massive inspiration on this game. So this was the first prototype that we did. We basically replaced the kind of flicking mechanics with a slingshot mechanic. And we were very quickly just wanging cars around a track. And the slingshotting felt fun, but as a game itself, it kind of didn't feel too good. It was too stop-starty. You need flow for racing games. So basically, we kind of scrapped that. It was only a day or so prototyping. No sort of skin off our nose with that one. But the actual slingshotting was super fun, and we quite liked that. And we had tanks in Dashy Crashy, so we quickly sort of took that. That's a video as well. So we quickly sort of took that as a prototype, and we kind of very quickly just kind of had tanks kind of bashing into each other and flinging it around. Now, this was instantly fun. We found this instantly kind of fun to play. We were aiming shots against the back of the wall. We were trying to hit tanks at different angles. Kids kind of love smashing things together. So we decided that we'd carry on prototyping a little bit of that. And then so immediately, kind of the format of the game kind of came to life. And if anyone who's played Smash Tanks now, you'll kind of see that the basic format of the game is there at the start. So we've kind of got 3-on-3 tanks, we've kind of got the health system, we've got very basic kind of destructibles. So kind of the core foundations of the game are there right at the start, and they didn't really change too much afterwards. So one of the things at this point is the game is now a fixed top-down 2D game, and that allows it to be super simple. Anyone can pick it up, they can just pull back and kind of play. But as we started sort of developing weapon prototypes, screenshots like this started appearing. So me and Jared were kind of sending these screenshots to each other, and it's kind of like, that looks really cool. Like, how do we kind of get that in the game? So we did a little bit of experimentation with this. We did some cutscene stuff, we did some kind of like manual camera stuff, but what we were sort of finding is that it was kind of compromising what we need in terms of simplicity and input from a game. So ultimately, we kind of shelved this. It kind of went on the shelf. The game was fun, it was extensible, but it kind of lacked like a spark for us. And then WWDC kind of happens, and the AR light bulb went off, and it pretty much looked exactly like this in my head. It was like, oh my God, we can make this holo game now. We have a board game. We could kind of put this together. So on the back of that, we started kind of prototyping. We're kind of in mid-August now. That was when we started putting this thing to kind of together. It's another video that doesn't work. I apologize. But very soon, the thing that kind of struck us, we grabbed the latest sort of tools from Unity and kind of plugged it in. And what was instantly striking for us is that over the course of literally a morning, we'd gone from this 2D game to chasing big 3D tanks down corridors. Like, for a team of 3 developers, AR just wasn't a thing that we could consider before ARKit came along. And I'm not exaggerating when I said it was that sort of simple to kind of put into the game. So, of course, the first thing you do when you've got AR, you make it life-size, and you kind of like run around and chase everything at full scale. But actually what happened is when we kind of like brought that down to a normal board game scale, we kind of found that players were very naturally experimenting with the board and exploring the board with their cameras. Suddenly all our camera problems are kind of being fixed. The second point with that is it was a genuine holy shit moment for us as developers, where three guys who've been making games for a long time, suddenly we've got something that we haven't really seen before. It was very exciting to kind of tinker with it. So we kind of dropped the projects that we were working on. We were working on something big and unannounced, maybe sometime. And we all cracked on working with this. So there's a few weeks of prototyping going on here, the next few weeks, but I'm going to quickly rapid fire through some of the key findings that we found with AR. So the first thing for us was the balance between digital and reality. Initially we had the board, and it was a normal sort of board game that you put down, but we kind of felt like it was obstructing a lot of what was cool about AR. So the trick was just to pull the grass out, pull the board out, and it very quickly just felt like lots of pieces on the table. It felt like a board game, which I thought was super cool, and that kind of stayed as it is. The next thing is input. Now we've given everybody a camera, and of course as soon as you do that, they're doing all sorts of things with it. They're sort of like portrait, they're landscape, they're twisting it around. So we kind of knew that we had to support and basically had to let players play any rotation, and we just had to refresh the UI and the game to kind of work with that. It needs to just work with the player. The big thing though was actually the revelation in terms of input. It was that because players are doing lots of different things with their camera and control, basically what you need to do is you need to track input AR space rather than on screen space. We see a lot of games still using the screen space sort of method, but long story short, that is what lets it feel really intuitive and lets inputs just work however they're looking at the game. UI was a big thing for us. Obviously, the first thing you want to do when you've got AR UI is like, it's all in-game, and we kind of had the big sort of air hockey kind of scoreboards and everything. Nobody looked at it, nobody used it. So we decided we'd go for a more traditional UI, but initially, when we had kind of opaque panels, what was happening was that it felt very obstructive. In terms of AR, you were getting jolted out by the UI. So the solution was actually just to take a page out of Apple's book. It was to basically use their translucency and what they use with UI. And so you kind of have these nice solid buttons, but you kind of still have the world seeping through behind. And it kind of looks sleek. Just a quick note on multiplayer. So when we started, we knew we were going to make a multiplayer game. We were initially thinking about doing a shared data point that we would share between players. But actually what we found is when you give each player a device, they basically kind of naturally face off, and they almost naturally create this space between one another. So that was kind of cool for us because it was like, oh, we don't need to spend all this time investing on that. We'll maybe come back to it later, but as a team of 3, we had other things that we could kind of concentrate on. So that was sweet. We're a few weeks in now, and we basically think we've got a nice prototype. We're having fun with it. We kind of want to share it with a bunch of people. So we managed to get some space at EGX, which, for those who don't know, EGX is like the biggest game show in the UK. There are challengers showing mobile games at EGX at the best of times. So imagine trying to show an empty table and trying to sell that idea. This is what we consider our ideal kind of play space for AR. You've got a dedicated spot for them to kind of play the game on. You've got good surface detail. You've got awesome lighting. But crucially, you are outputting to a screen so that spectators can see what's going on. They can kind of understand it. But But it wasn't all like that. The first day of EGX was a complete write-off for us. Somebody stole our table, the cloth wouldn't pick up, the lighting wasn't working. And crucially, we were making a multiplayer game, but there was so much signal noise that we couldn't get multiplayer matches working. So actually, a lot of that first day was me and Brent just kind of holed up in a coffee shop trying to get things working. The solution to the multiplayer was literally we wrote some single-player AI very, very quickly. And the good thing about that is actually it got more kind of players in. So here we are, end of the first day. We've kind of got it all working. Everybody's gone home at this point, but we are kind of happy. So we're off. We've got the game working. People are playing the game. There are no kind of problems with the gameplay mechanics. Everybody understands the input. But nobody is interacting with the AR component. And it doesn't matter how much we'd sit there and sort of say, hey, you can move around the table, or you could flash text up and say that you can move around the table. They just weren't doing it. And so thinking about why that was, when you see a lot of AR games, they almost feel like game demos in a way. There's a focus on an object, and you're maneuvering around the object. But actually, because we were a game, I think almost the gameplay was obstructing the technology in a weird way. People were all just concentrating on the game, and they weren't utilizing the tech. So 2 solutions to this. First one, I went away and just quickly made a map, and I just put a really great big tower right in the middle of it, and it completely obstructed the player's view. So what was happening now, they would start playing, and they would very naturally do the video game lean. So you know the one where everyone's doing racing games and they kind of peek around. They would do this here. So what you had is they would just naturally peek around this object that was obstructing them. And then they would get this, they'd be physically shocked by the technology. And that was great. All of a sudden, they were exploring the board. They were moving around. It was super cool. The second thing we kind of looked at was to try and encourage players around the board and to, again, move around the board. We kind of put weak spots on the tanks. And the idea was you hit these, every tank had a little spot. You hit these spots, and it would do like quad damage. But the upshot of this is people were moving around the board. They would line up their shots. They were playing off the backboard. They were trying to get these weak spots. And again, it was just encouraging movement. The game very quickly became a game about weak spots, which was awesome. So on the back of that, that kind of set the pace of the game as well. It also set kind of the round format and stuff like that. So yay, we've got happy players. We're getting loads of people through now, lots of feedback for the next 3 days, and it was really amazing to see, and the feedback was super positive. We'd actually get people coming back at the end of the day when it was quiet to try and get some multiplayer matches with their friends. People were making up drinking games as well, which I can't condone that. But the upshot of this is that basically, The Guardian, they picked us as one of their favourite games of EGX, which was stunning and surprising for us. And then very soon off the back of that, we were actually invited down by Apple to demo alongside Tim Cook for their AR showcase, which is kind of crazy at this point. We're a prototype. I think actually the Monday before we demoed, we rewrote the multiplayer because it wasn't working very well. So yeah, it's all going nuts. So we're kind of mid-October at this point. And the team are super charged up about this. We're getting good feedback. It kind of feels like there's a real opportunity. This is a friends and family game. We can get this out for Christmas. I think this is the image we kind of had in our head as well. It was like, yeah, replace that board game with phones. Look at Grandad. He's really going for it. So the next kind of 10 weeks kind of looked a lot like this. Tons of testing, street testing everywhere. We were on the streets, we were in coffee shops, we were getting surfaces at different angles, we were playing with randoms. We had students come in for those 10 weeks, sort of basically living with us, playing the game in multiplayer. So testing, tons of it. We also did 2 more shows. We did Play Expo, where we basically really hammered out the kind of pass and play mechanics of the game, and that was in October. And then in November, we did Yorkshire Games Fest, which is quite a young audience, and that really allowed us to kind of like child-proof the game. So during these 10 weeks as well, there's a couple of key, that video works. There's a couple of key developments that kind of happened. So we spent a long time working on demolition. And the key sort of point for the demolition was that how do we encourage people to move around the board? So we really emphasized a lot of time on this and worked on this. And the cool thing is, every time you play it, it's different. The match is different. You're always thinking about the play space. The other thing is, if you want to demo AR, there's nothing cooler than things blowing up and flying past you. So just as a sort of pro tip. I can't really progress without talking about our item system. We built this game around what we call the pick 3 system. And basically, you had a whole collection of tanks, and at the start of every round, you would pick from a set of 12. And the cool thing was you would strategize, you would almost build decks around it. This was our business model. We were basically going to give you a few tanks, and then you were going to make one purchase and get the rest of them. It didn't work. It just didn't work. As much as we were laboring it and trying it, it just didn't. It was causing confusion. It was adding friction to the flow of the game. People didn't understand what the weapons were. They didn't know how to charge, how to trigger. So literally 2 weeks before release, we had all these cool weapons. We just thought, right, let's Mario Kart it. And this fixed tons of problems. Instantly, we've got power-ups dropping in. People know what that crate does. I'm going to get something out of that. It streamlined the UI. It improved. It fixed so many problems for us. It's not funny. But the other upshot is it added another dimension to the gameplay. Added another dimension to the board. There was another thing that players were looking at and trying to find and maneuver around. So that was cool. So obviously, I can't talk about this without talking about monetization. Every developer goes through this. We just kind of like dropped our business model, yay, which was fun and quite scary. So basically, we were sort of reviewing what we were going to do and how we were going to kind of price this. Ads for us weren't really an option. Mainly for the purpose that I think ads at the moment in AR are a real obstruction, and I think they really amplify things, amplify that obstruction. So that wasn't an option for us. The next thing is that we kind of, when we're sort of thinking about like what players would do and how they would play, we were sort of thinking about kind of 2 people together and what the cost of that was. So we kind of sort of said $3.99 sort of feels like it's the right sort of shot for that. So we're finished, yay! So literally we submit the app the night before the 21st. It was pretty scary, to be honest. But we're not finished. So December 21st, the app is out, it's on the App Store. We don't have a preview movie. So we bolt it to the nearest cafe. We're sat there sort of like filming lots of things. I had an idea about what this thing would be, how it would all cut together. And again, we spent hours doing footage. Didn't work. It just felt really clumsy. So literally, it's the end of the day now. They're cleaning up around us. We're running out of time. It's just like, let's just do a really honest bit of footage for it. So we kind of captured this. Cool. So literally, we felt that was very honest. That was exactly what the game was. It's 2 people together. They're having this digital experience. And the way that I kind of did that is I positioned the game and I was filming and I was directing as I was playing it. So I'm sort of like, right, I've just launched a missile. Brent, be super happy. Like, oh no, Jared, you've been hit. But actually, I think that uncomplicated way really kind of got the game across. We posted that up to Reddit for shits and giggles, and it actually made the front page of Reddit, which is unheard of for a mobile game, really. We got 50,000 upvotes. The sentiment around AR was just pretty staggering. Unilad picked it up as well. Again, comments super positive about this. And then we ended up getting a worldwide feature. So best new games, that was awesome. The banner actually came through on Boxing Day, I think, and that lasted for a few days. But the upshot of this is, on Christmas Day, we were actually the #1 paid board game, which is kind of crazy when you think about the origins of this game. So, cool. So, I've got 2 minutes. And this is kind of usually the point where I would kind of have a little bit of a post-mortem and talk about kind of revenue and details. That was about 3 weeks ago, though. I think we're a little bit early for that. I will say there are numbers kind of came in a little bit lower than expected. We will follow up on that, but I don't think it's an AR question. I think it's a premium question, given where we charted. We were sort of like 10, 11 in paid charts, so I don't think it's actually an AR thing. Us as a team, we're going to be adding more content to Smash Tanks. We're looking at AR Core, and also we're actually working on new AR prototypes already. So I just want to leave you with a couple of AR sort of dev challenges that we're kind of experiencing. We're super fresh off this, so there's this weird feeling that we're a little bit early to the party in a weird way. It's kind of like we're the bleeding edge of this technology, and it's almost like we're still writing the rules, we're still defining what this thing is. Scanning is a brilliant example. Every time you do an AR game, you've got to scan, and you've got to set up your play surface. But actually, everybody's doing this in a very different way, and it feels like there needs to be a sort of a standardized language. Platform probably needs to get involved with that. I think we're very early with audience as well. I think there's a big job, there's lots to do with actually explaining what AR is, why it's cool to the audience, and some of that comes to press as well. At the moment we're finding it quite difficult to sort of talk to press and get them engaged with AR games. So, all fun and games, but it's super exciting to be at the start of a new technology as well. But just be warned, you are early. And that's it. Thank you. So I hope that was sort of insightful. Thank you.